What's the most enjoyable thing you did during the break? Need some time to think about it? Would you like to hear about mine while you're thinking? Thanks. A friend of a friend had some yard work that needed to be done, and I went to help out. Yeah, I mean, not always, but it can be. First of all, like I said, it wasn't my yard. I didn't have to plan anything or make any decisions or judge the quality of the work. That's all someone else's responsibility. If it's not up to me, I just have to do what they tell me and then say, "How's this?" And then they say, "Okay," or else, "Do more of this," or "Do less of that." And then I do what they say. The only thing I have to worry about is permanently damaging something. I say permanently because most of the work involves plants. They grow back, and so time will cover any small mistakes I make. However, time does not heal all wounds, and I want to avoid doing anything that can't be undone. Right. Expectations are already low because no one involved is a pro. So we all just do our best, and the owner of the house understands that, I think. It wouldn't be reasonable to expect professional quality from amateurs. Anyway, the first task was to climb up a stepladder and lop off the top of a small tree. No need for beauty, just keep it out of the power lines. The next tree, though, was one of those Japanese gardeny pine trees with the twisted branches and pillows of needles. The basic silhouette had been carved out by, naturally, a traditionally trained Japanese gardener. Luckily, I didn't have to modify that at all. The young branches were growing outside the lines, and I just had to trim them back. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just cut the ones that are sticking out, she said. The tufts were grouped into 3 tiers, and so I set up the ladder again, did the top first, and started working my way down. The thing is, around the middle, the places I was pruning were much closer to me, easier to see and to cut. As a result, I naturally started cutting them much more carefully. The curves that had been decided by the pro became that much more apparent. That made the quick work I had done at the top look pretty sloppy. It looked fine next to the parts that were untouched, but once the middle started looking clean, the top looked too scruffy. She agreed, so I climbed back up and took another pass at it. Long story short, I got stuck in an unending loop of doing and doing over. You've got to know when to say when. The work itself is fun. I do enjoy building and breaking things with my own hands. I like DIY stuff, although I don't do it often enough. There's also a large element of nostalgia. I grew up in a house with a pretty big yard. I mean, for my hometown it was completely average, but here in Japan it would be considered pretty big. My mom always had a flower garden in front of the house and another in back, and vegetables organized into several patches. My dad took care of the lawn and the trees and any heavy labor that the gardens required. They let me help where I could, and the range of tasks I could do grew over time. For most of my adult life, this kind of activity has been restricted to the balcony and the windowsill. So I jump at the chance to stretch out and chop and saw and dig and climb. The climax of the day was another tree that needed to be trimmed, but is shaped in a way that makes it very difficult to reach from the ladder. The better option is to climb the tree itself and cut it from the inside. The branches are only thick enough to support my weight at the point where they meet the trunk, so I had to step very carefully. I took off my shoes and climbed in just my socks so I could wedge my feet into these tight spaces without marring the bark. The footing felt secure that way, but the footing wasn't the only problem. The tree swayed whenever I shifted my weight. The branches are close together, and I had to bend and slither and matrix around them to reach what I was cutting. So I shifted my weight a lot. So the tree swayed a lot. I don't mind saying that there were a few terrifying moments. When I said yard work, you said boring. And yeah, a lot of it is admittedly mundane, but this bit was honestly pretty thrilling. A few meters above the ground, no safety ropes, just my own balance and grip. No safety net below, just rocks. It's a Japanese garden. I thought the rocks were beautiful until I was looking straight down on them from 4 meters up. Well, maybe not four, but high anyway. I got through the scariest part without incident, but was not unscathed by the end. Just as I was feeling proud of myself for managing to limbo under one branch, I bonked my head full force on another. I picked up a few small injuries later on. The climbing climax was not the end, thankfully. I was making good time, and so she assigned me one more tree. For the first time, I remembered to take a before photo. That's what you've been looking at. This is before, and this is after. The lighting changed, too. There was nothing I could do about that. Hurry, I guess. The task was pretty much the same. Trim the misbehaving twigs back to the professional shape. There was, however, a new challenge. One of the neighboring trees was a yuzu tree. The leaves sticking into the top of the frame belonged to that tree. The tree in this pic isn't the same tree. It isn't even a yuzu tree. It's some unidentified citrus tree, but the shape of the thorns is similar, so I just thought I'd include it for anyone who isn't familiar with citrus thorns. I was one of you, actually. Before this, when I heard the word thorn, I thought of the relatively stubby thorns on rose stems. The ones that were stabbing me this day were over an inch long and unbelievably sharp. I didn't think to take a photo that day. I got this from the internet. So, if I moved the wrong way, I'd end up scratching and skewering myself on the thorns, which I did repeatedly. But the pain and the effort to avoid it, like the fear and the effort not to fall, were just challenges that added to the labor, and so they added to the sense of accomplishment. This feeling can sometimes be lacking in the day to day. It's easy to find yourself in a repetitive rut or an algorithm bubble. I felt lucky to have a chance to break out of that. Oh, another thing that added to the experience. The last time I did yard work, I used an electric hedge trimmer. That has its own pluses, but this time I did everything manually, with hedge shears, hand pruners, and a saw. More tactile feedback means more satisfaction. After I erase the whiteboard in the classroom, it's as though I had never written anything. The images I scroll past on my phone are equally unreal. Doing literal, hands-on work is like an antidote to existential dread. Okay, your turn.